Thank you very much, CP Academy, and thank you very much, Bill, for collaborating with me in this webinar. ChatGPT for Controllers. We're going to be focusing on spend management workflows. That's this really important piece of it. Now, controllers, CFOs, accounting managers, they take care of a lot of different things inside of an organization. We have internal audits, we have internal controls, but we want to particularly think about, okay, where can ChatGPT or AI inserted or integrated into our current workflow software change the outlook of our work? Okay, so that's kind of the concept here. Table of contents. We'll talk about me really quick, about our sponsor Bill. I'll discuss why CFO and controllers are eyeing AI particularly this year. We'll talk about beyond ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is not the only player in town, and then we'll get through some examples. I have 5 examples I want to get through. We might get to 4. We'll see how quickly the webinar goes, and then our sponsor Bill will do a quick demo or discuss their solution at the end. About myself, I'm a CPA based out of Florida. I have a YouTube channel. I founded an app called Right Tool for QuickBooks Online. I am the host of Reframe 2025 in Miami in November. If you want links to any of that stuff, that should be on the slides. And there's my email. Write that down. Take a picture. If there's anything in this webinar that wasn't answered, that wasn't clear, just email me. I'll do my best to either send you a private video, some tutorials, point you to something in YouTube that could be helpful, because it's one hour to cover a lot of questions. And if you haven't checked our sponsor Bill, go to bill.com. Okay, some of the old school accounting users still call it bill.com, but it's Bill. And check it out. They do accounts payable, accounts receivable, spend management, all that stuff. And at some point in the very near future, you're going to see Bill integrating all of these concepts into their app. Now, I want to start with this Bain Capital study, and the link is on the description, so you can actually go through the study and read it. I think it's really, really good to read, because they surveyed a couple of companies last year, mostly in that mid-market, companies big enough to have a CFO and have controllers, and asked them, where are they spending, or how much are they spending in AI in this coming year? And it looks like 29% of CFOs are already implementing AI, and particularly in procurement and vendor management, FP&A and expense management. Those are the 2 examples that we're going to be discussing, kind of procurement, vendor management, expense management, so you can get to kind of see a really good analysis. And like in summary, 79% of the people that they survey plan to increase their spend in AI this year. So that's what 2025 is looking like in this world. Now, the AI chatbots like ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini, Meta, all Grok, all these things that you're going in there asking questions, that is one side of the story. The other side of the story is the workflow apps that we already use having AI features. Now, currently, there's a kind of a big narrative that AI is taking over the profession, replacing team members. People are claiming that they're saving hours and of work. I am not sure how realistic that is today. I think many CFOs I have spoken to and controllers are heavily investing in AI, but it doesn't seem to be paradigm shifting yet. However, I think this will change, and this will change pretty soon. It doesn't mean you need to freak out and do something drastic right now, but what I'm saying is you should gotta be ready. What you're seeing now, I think, is a glimpse into the near future. And some of these examples that will go through this webinar, I think they will be helpful, but I don't think they will be transformative until our ERP software, our connected apps that we use every day, whether it's QuickBooks, NetSuite, Sage, Bill, ADP, Google Workspace, Microsoft, when these systems start building these AI examples into it, that's when it'll become close to paradigm shifting. Now, will it replace a human? I'm not sure yet, but I have seen a lot of larger companies put stop into hiring unless someone can make or can prove or can make a case that AI cannot do the work of that new hire. So you're starting to see a little bit of that tide shift, a little bit of that narrative sort of taking over. Now, beyond ChatGPT, I want to make sure that you have this resource on hand. If you've seen my webinars before, you probably see me talk about this over and over and over. I won't stop. I'm going to repeat it every single time because we have a lot of new people that can watch these webinars. This LM Arena leaderboard is really, really important because this stuff moves super fast. ChatGPT is not the only game in town. We have Google Gemini, we have Claude, we have DeepSeek, we have Grok. There's tons of other contenders. So when you think AI, just my suggestion is that you don't just think immediately as the only association it should be ChatGPT. ChatGPT, to me, in my experience, I use it every day. I still think it's kind of like best in town. So I would continue to probably do a lot of my demos in ChatGPT because I use ChatGPT every day. But keep in mind that the other players out there are making big strides. Also, if you click on the link in the description, this will send you the release notes for ChatGPT. I think it's worth it at least once per month, at least one per month, to go through these and see all the new features that they add. Now, none of these things are contextualized to accounting or controllership or CFO. None of these things are going to tell you, oh, okay, this is going to be great for my job or for my department. But as you start looking at what all these little features are, you can start imagining how these things come into play. Now, some of these features that have just been released in the last couple of months, right now that we're in the middle of, dead smack in the middle of 2025, some of these things are going to come into play and you're going to see them, but they're not going to shine out. You're like, oh, that's a new feature. It's more sort of ubiquitous to the whole system. So keep that in mind. So let's go into the first demo. But before doing that, I'm going to start running some polling questions. So this will be the only time I'm going to say out loud that there's a polling question. There's going to be 3 more polling questions, 4 polling questions in total, and those will be sprinkled through the presentation. Every time I run a polling question, I'm going to go read your live Q&A, and then based on your questions and your comments, I'm going to try to, as much as possible, answer some of these questions that you may have, but I do have a particular presentation that I want to go over. So again, polling question is up, and right after the first polling question gets taken down, I will be doing the first demo, so to speak. Okay, so I'm going to answer a couple questions here. Some of the comments here are asking for the very basic. Some people are saying, I'm here for the very basics. I want to get started with ChatGPT. So we're actually going to skip a couple steps. This is going to be more of a sort of like mid-level skill. So I do recommend go back to CPA Academy and check some of the earlier webinars where I talk specifically about the basics. Right? It's going to be more of a sort of level 2, mid-level skill. So this will be ideal for folks that have already played with ChatGPT, have already done a couple of things in ChatGPT, because we are going to skip some of the very basics. And some people are asking, are you going to be working on the free version or the paid version? I'm going to be working on the paid version. There's a very specific reason why I would pay for the paid version. I'm a CPA. I have an accounting firm. I want my data to be private. I don't want ChatGPT to use my data to train the model. So all the paid editions give you the ability, actually by default, especially the Teams edition, it doesn't train your model. So I think that's kind of the most important piece. Okay. All right. Okay. So that's good to go. Let's go ahead and let's move forward. Thank you so much. All right. First demo, data analysis. And kind of the first concept that I wanted to throw at you here is, imagine you have a big spreadsheet, right? Like we usually do. We get this big spreadsheet with a bunch of expenses that we get for each of our employees. Maybe these are, reimbursement reports. Maybe these are list of expenses that they paid through the company credit card. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying the typical thing is we'll have a date, we'll have a payee, we'll have an amount, we have the person responsible. So imagine you have a spreadsheet that looks like this, and I'm just going to save this as a CSV so I can upload it into ChatGPT. And then we go into ChatGPT and we use the upload feature. That's a little plus button there. We use the upload feature and upload the file. This is called a data analysis. Any single time that you upload a CSV file, an Excel file, something with data, it's going to go into data analysis. Now, under tools, you can change any of these. However, because it's data analysis, you really don't have to do much in here. It will know automatically. So we won't be using any of these tools with this example. But I am going to tell it what to do. So I'm going to first give it some context. This is a list of expenditures of my 4 employees that are traveling salesmen. And I want you to do an analysis of how much money each of them is spending and the categories they're spending it in. Okay, that's a good first start. Just kind of put my prompt in there, hit send. Okay, so it grabs the spreadsheet, it puts it in what is called analysis mode. This analysis mode is this little button that you see here that allows you to expand the table. When you expand the table, it does this sort of side by side where it keeps the table on the left-hand side, which is great. And then actually you can do modifications to the data, and you can download the table if there's any modifications. And then the right-hand side would be sort of the analysis mode, right? So I'm gonna collapse it again so it's a little bit easier to read, and then we'll start getting some answers. So the first thing that it does is basically tells you what it read. It's date, payee, amount, employee. So it read what it is, right? So it looks like this: date, payee, amount, employee. That's all. Just starting very basic. Okay. Then it says I'm gonna clean it up if I have any decimals or whatever. So it does that, and then it says here's a total spend per employee. So I went in there and did it did it by category. So let's just do another analysis. Give me the top 3 categories and amounts for each of the employees. And I know a few of you are thinking, Hector, I do this with pivot tables. I already get sort of this level of analysis, or I have particular software that runs this. Okay, that's true. And I would say if that's working well, then fine. You know, you don't have to move this route. But what works pretty interestingly here is the fact that we do it pretty natural. We'll do it pretty, just do it with voice, so to speak, right? So here's my top spend for each employee, each category. So I'm going to give it another prompt. I'm going to say, for each employee, read the payees and tell me what cities they traveled to for the month of March. Okay, so I had it just to give you some context here. So we can sort this by date. We have transactions for the whole year. We have transactions for March. And then some of these payees will tell you the cities, right? Because that's how it looks like in the credit card. And some don't. So it will probably have to infer some of this stuff based on that. So now you're asking it to extract specific piece of data from the text. This is something that you don't get with a pivot table, or you don't get with standard reports, unless your data is super clean, like you have a completely separate field for the city. So now we're seeing where the advantage of it is. Okay, let me just try this again. First, list all the cities that everybody traveled to. So we'll go, we'll just kind of go by steps. So we'll have it just read all the cities that it traveled to. Let me see, it returned none. Let's upload this again. I'm gonna upload the file one more time, make sure it didn't get confused. Let's go to, we'll go inside the payee name. These are transactions that came from a credit card. The cities and states are listed in some transactions. Please group the cities based on every employee just for the month of March. Okay, let's see if maybe we upload it again, if it gets a little bit less confused. Maybe during the first pass, maybe it might have cleaned up the data and removed the cities. Okay, so here's some of the examples. Okay, so it says here that Barbara went to Georgia, Dallas, Chicago. Carlos went to Austin, Houston, Boston. So it gives you some information. Okay, so it's kind of one little piece of analysis that you can do. So that's kind of what we think about is we have a spreadsheet, we have data, we have it analyze it. Okay, I could do other things like what was the biggest expenditure and the vendor name for each of the employees. Okay, and again, what I think is going to be most valuable is when our current software, whether it's spreadsheet software or spend management software, allows us to have this sort of natural interaction with it, so we don't have to be running tables and doing mins and mans and max and all that stuff. So that's kind of the high level of uploading a spreadsheet, working with it. Again, you can expand the table and kind of work side by side. So that's kind of level one, okay? So let's move on to the next concept here, which is, and the implications again is that, you know, any AI enables spend management will automatically alert controllers when expenses are abnormal. Okay, we can do that. We can do an example of that. Let's do it one more time. Let's upload. Let's start a new one, and let's just have it do a more AI type of analysis, right? Something that's not necessarily statistical, something that's a little bit more, you know, a human would do. Tell me which expenses seem abnormal based on the fact pattern. These are expenditures from traveling salesmen in my team. Okay, so we'll upload the same spreadsheet again, and we'll have it just do a different type of analysis. One that's, again, we said abnormal, which is not a mathematical equation. You know, so we'll have it, you kind of like figure this out. So we'll expand it and see what I thought it was. So I thought, let's see, it based on, it did use a statistical analysis, which used the outlier, but it figured that these were outliers. And I'm going to ask it, why do you think these were abnormal? Okay, and then we'll have it give us some information. So it says that it used something called a z-score, which is having to do with statistical average. So it took a look at the statistical average of all of them, and it came up with it pretty cool. And then it says, you know, you still need some contextual judgment. Okay, so that's actually an interesting approach. Okay, I could also do something else, and I could say, which of my salespeople seem to be traveling the most? Again, not necessarily a statistical question. It actually has to use some deeper analysis, and then it shows here, it counts the number of travel transactions. Okay, and then it says here, travel transactions are based on expenses, hotels, flight transportations, and conferences. Barbara Roberts seems to be traveling the most. Okay, so which month and city was Barbara traveling the most? And I'll give you access to this spreadsheet just in case you want to play with this as well. So I'm going to go into the live slides and paste that sheet in there for you. So if you want to later on, you know, use that same data and kind of try to replicate that, you can do that. So that's in the live slides. It's in the chat as well. So if you want kind of like to play with the same data, you can do that. I find that that's what people want to do. They want to play with the data afterwards. So here's the most active months: January, February, April, May, which had four travel-related expenses. Georgia, 4 transactions. Chicago, 3 transactions. New York, 3 transactions. Again, if your data was super clean already and separated, yeah, you could do that with a pivot table. So I'm not saying this is better or faster than pivot tables. This is simply to do that. And then you can say, you can go by category, like who spends the most in meals, or like who goes to more expensive restaurants rather than cheaper restaurants, that sort of thing. And then you can also do deeper analysis. Like, for example, let's say I have a client list, right? So let's say I have a client list here, and then this client list shows me the name of the client and the cities they're in, which won't match exactly the cities in which they have expenditures, because expenditure could have been somewhere near the airport, or, you know, on the way to the client or something like that. So I can go back here, just go at the very beginning, and I'll change this as well, and I'll say, based on this client list, who visited these clients. So now we're in a much more complex question, right? We have a list of expenses. We have a client list with cities. You know, he's gonna have to figure out which cities are kind of close to that. You know, whether it's an airport city or something like that. You know, so then you're having it now cross-reference 2 pieces of information, right? We had a client list with, you know, the address of the client, and then we had, you know, a bunch of expenditures, and now it's trying to make the connection. So it's gonna try to see, okay, you know, Uxbridge, UK, what kind of expenses will help me track that that salesperson, that sort of thing. Okay, while these things, because it might take a little bit longer, I'm going to go through the live questions and answer some. So somebody says, dumb question, how do I get ChatGPT? Just go to chatgpt.com, create a free account. At some point, you will probably pay the $20 a month or the $30 a month or whatever. So you can start having the paid version. Okay. And we have another question here that says, is it better to upload Excel files or CSV files? So in my opinion, if you upload a CSV file, it's usually cleaner because it's just a single table. If you upload Excel files, you have to tell it to go through multiple sheets or specify the specific sheet. Okay, that becomes a little bit confusing. So that's kind of the way I would I would do it. Okay, so this is actually saying that it's going to try to do fuzzy matching, and we'll say yes, try that. Okay, and then we'll have it do some fuzzy matching in this case because it realized that it wasn't a one-to-one relationship, and then it's going to try to do a little bit of a fuzzy matching. Okay, yeah, it's giving. Let me try it. I'm going to try it with a new chat. Let me upload. I'm going to upload the file again. Extract the cities from this list of expenses. Okay, we'll have it extract the list from the list of expenses first. Then I'm going to go ahead and upload the client names and the city names, and we'll have it match it again. This is the thing about ChatGPT is like, it'll get stuck. It won't move forward. Usually you just start a new chat and just kind of have it reset itself. Okay, it's a lot of trial and error happening at all times. So like, I'm not here to represent ChatGPT or sell you on ChatGPT or anything like that. So I'm just telling you this is what it is, right? So let's go ahead and now do that. So let's do, this is my client list, match their city with the list of cities traveled from the table. Okay, so first in this case, it got stuck the first time. So first I just had it extract the major cities from the expenditure list. Then I told it, okay, this is my client list, match them. Now it's gonna have, should be a lot better, because it's just less data for it to process. Sometimes you kind of have to like pre-chew it for them. It's kind of, for ChatGPT, it's kind of the frustrating part. But here's the table, so it started matching things. So Apex Financial, Houston. So I started matching them based on the major cities that we were in. Okay, and then what we can say is, based on this, tell me which salesperson visited which client. Okay, so now we'll have a cross-reference now. So first we did the fuzzy search, try to figure out which major city these clients belong to, and then we're going to have it cross-reference the client mapping, and then it says, okay, Barbara went to Radiant, but Michael also went to Radiant, right, based on the cities. Barbara went to Apex, right? So it starts going through and kind of cross-referencing who might have visited which of the clients based on the cities. So again, just kind of a fun way to kind of see the power that it has when you start uploading multiple things. And again, you can upload them. You can upload the client list in Excel as well, or you can paste it in there, whichever way will work. Okay. Now I have a question here that says which paid version of ChatGPT I'm using. I'm actually using both. So if you go into account here and you go into manage change plans, you have a personal version. You got the plus version for $20 and the pro version for $200. I use ChatGPT so much that I don't want to get rate limited. So the problem with the plus version, which is great, is that after, I don't know, maybe like an hour of usage, it will say come back in a couple of hours. So in order to not get rate limited, I paid the $200 a month version for the pro edition. And I'm in the business of educating people with ChatGPT as well, so it makes sense for me. But also for my team, I use the business edition, which is $25 a month if you pay an annual, a year in advance, or $30 a month if you pay month by month. And the team version is usually what most accounting firms that I help into ChatGPT get into. So I actually have both editions, one for my own personal stuff and one for stuff that I work with my team. Okay, So that's good. So let's go through the next demo here. We're going to talk about image generation. Now, this one's kind of weird because most people in the CFO controllership role don't really need to use any image generation. But what I want to show you is how crazy good these systems are getting, so you are ready for potentially, what I'm talking about here is potential new fraud attempts inside organizations with fake receipts. So I'm showing you how to create a fake receipt so you understand what some people might go through to create fake receipts. So for example, I'm going to say, create a photorealistic receipt taken from an iPhone inside of a restaurant. Let's do a Fridays, the one in Times Square, and they spent about $400 plus whatever sales tax is in New York City, plus 20% tip. Make sure that the paper is a little bit corrugated, that there's some napkins and cups around, so it looks like the picture was taken on top of the dinner table. And write a handwritten note that says, dinner with Michael from ABC Corp about the 2026 pipeline. Okay, so I'm just going to put here Fridays, just make sure that, okay, and let's do a dinner. I'm going to put quotes here, dinner with Michael about the 2026 guideline. I'm going to give it a little bit better instructions. So we go take a photorealistic. Okay, let's do a step 1. Let's do step 2. Whoops. Let's do step 2. Let's do, okay, let's do step 1. Okay, so I'm going to give it more specific instructions. That way it knows exactly what I want out of it. So let's go ahead and send these instructions. I know I hit enter a little bit too early. We'll stop that. We'll try this again. Send. Okay. So I told her what I wanted. Photorealistic receipt taken from an iPhone inside of a restaurant. Let's do Fridays, the one in Times Square, right? I didn't give it an address or anything. I guess it's got to go find out what the address is. Spend about $400 plus whatever sales tax is, plus 20% tip. Make sure the paper is corrugated. Write a handwritten note that says, dinner with Michael from ABC Corp about 2026 pipeline. Again, if you're a CFO and you are a controller, you're not going to be creating receipts or creating images. That's probably not even something that that you'll be using. What I'm just trying to make sure, if you're a controller, a CFO, that you understand that this is coming, right? We have all these receipts that could be fake, so we have to make sure that you're watching out for them, right? And you're going to see, in this case, she sent me an image of an iPhone taking a picture, so that's a little bit weird, but that could be cut. But just kind of gives you a general idea of how it does it. And while that loads, I'll show you another picture that I had generated earlier, so you can see that too. So look at this one. I actually played with this prompt a little bit. I gave it a specific address. I told it to write the handwritten notes. I said, make sure that there's 3 or 4 people eating worth. Add some extra gratuity. Like I play with this image to get there. These are AI generated images. Okay, so again, not practical for day-to-day use. This is more practical for folks that are in charge of receiving receipts. Here's another one from Walmart. Okay, again, you can go a little bit further and do that. I'm going to show you one more step, right? Because receipt generation is not as exciting as having it detect why it could be possibly a fake receipt. Okay, so let's do that. And so again, the implication is we might start seeing more fraud, just to be to be cognizant of that. Now, the next one that I want you to kind of think about is, all right, you are getting receipts, you are getting documentation, and you're trying to figure out if this stuff is real or not, or you're trying to quickly figure this out. Now, with today's technology, most humans will look at it and go, fake, 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 okay? But as this gets better and better and better, I don't think a human will be able to tell how, whether these things are fake or not. we might need our own ERP systems to be equipped with this stuff. So like I'm hoping that that the spend management software, it's actually looking into this stuff and doing that. So I'm gonna upload. A couple of receipts here. Okay, and I uploaded 3 receipts here. So the first thing I wanna show you is how it can interpret stuff from receipts. So we're gonna say, read these receipts and give me a table of date, vendor, quick description of what was purchased, and total amount. Okay, so imagine, again, your spend management software where you don't have to even read the receipts anymore. I mean, you can, obviously, you want to eyeball them a little bit and make sure that, that they don't look blatantly fake. But this is just super interesting. You get to see the receipts. I guess these receipts didn't have dates on them, and that's obviously because these were all AI generated. But we have the vendor name and we have the description, so it grabs the information from here. So one of the things that I picture our spend management software having eventually is having it double check. Like you upload 10 receipts, and then you upload let's say a reimbursement form. Double check that the math is right. Double check that the text in the receipts more or less makes sense compared to what they're putting. I mean, that's kind of how I visualize it. So this is just it grabbing these receipts and interpreting them or reading data from them. And you can have it read, separate the sales tax out, separate tip, all of that stuff could be done. Okay, all right. So let's go. The next step here is I'm actually going to ask it. I am a controller for a manufacturing company, and these are receipts given to me by my traveling sales team. Can you help me figure out if these receipts are fake or real? Okay, the same 3 receipts. So now it's going to go through an analysis, right? So I try to figure out what they are. So first, so the interesting that it does is it almost always tells you it's thinking. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to look for formatting inconsistencies, unusual totals, suspicious tax calculations. So it went through it and it goes, the Home Depot, right? The 315, clearly listed what they bought, the sales tax. So it says, look, sales taxes are unusually high depending on the state. So it detected something weird. Format looks professional. Verdict, it looks mostly authentic, but the sales tax is worth confirming based on local rate. So it didn't immediately discard the Home Depot receipt as fake, which is kind of interesting. This next one, okay, it says includes a handwritten note. Okay, this could be normal, but it could be added after the fact. Okay, there's something sales tax looks a little bit big. It looks like they potentially duplicated the sales tax twice. Typical restaurant items, that looks about right, but it looks suspicious because maybe the handwritten note, which is actually kind of interesting because handwritten notes are actually very common in that. And in the Walmart one, it says, look, it looks like a really high dollar amount for it being cash, right? So it just says it's likely suspicious because of that. But it doesn't necessarily tell you that it knows it's AI because it created it. So that's another thing, again, for people that are looking at the receipt generation and going, well, I'm not sure how this is practical. It's like it doesn't even know that it created that image, right? So that's actually a really important point. Right, so likely the AI systems that have to be built to detect whether or not these images are real will probably not even have to be OpenAI, or they have to use multiple systems to be able to do that. I have a question here about the safety of uploading documents or personal identifiable information. I want to show you something in the settings. There is under security, you have multi-factor authentication, logging out, secure enterprise level signing systems. I mean, so at least from that perspective, the data should be safe. But there's also this really important one. This is called improve the model for everyone. Allow your content to be used to train our models. This is the stuff that's by default is off with the paid edition. So according to what OpenAI tells everybody, and you can learn, their specific AI policies and stuff, is as long as that is turned off, in theory, OpenAI doesn't use your data or can't read your data or anything having to do with having access to personal identifiable data. So I feel pretty safe uploading data here. However, I would ask you to obfuscate, social security numbers and stuff like that if you don't feel safe. But I can't endorse it because I haven't audited, ChatGPT to tell you, yeah, I know for 100%, I know for a fact 100% that they don't use your data, they don't have access to your data. But that's how they, they advertise that anyway. Okay. Let's talk about using the text functions of ChatGPT. So some of the more common things that a CFO would do, a new CFO, a new controller, is, hey, I want to update, the current policies, or create a, travel policy, reimbursement policy, something like that. So let's do that. Let's go into ChatGPT. Let's create a new chat, and let's say, I'm a brand new CFO in a $100 million manufacturing company that has about 30 people traveling around and selling our product to wholesalers, comma. This company doesn't have a clear travel reimbursement policy. Create a template for me to start filling it up. However, before doing that, ask me 10 key questions about the organization that will provide enough context so you can create a highly customized policy. So notice the difference between the difference between a regular prompt and a prompt that's meant to be more custom. So usually most people talk about the prompt, and the prompt should be really, really important, et cetera, the power of the prompt, yes. But I think that where you add more value to the prompt is by telling it to ask you, the questions, right? Deep questions. Now, and the next thing I'm also going to do is, instead of using the ChatGPT 4.0 model, I'm going to use the O3 model. And the O3 model is a high reason model, which actually takes a lot longer to answer, which is fine, because I want these questions to be a little bit deeper. I don't want it to be just highly surface questions. So it's going to be thinking a little bit prior. Okay, so here are the questions, right? So I'm going to start answering them. So the first one is, where do your teams travel? So we're going to say mostly domestic and Canada, but Europe. Let me answer with voice because I'm horrible at typing in a live webinar. Mostly US and Canada, but every once in a while, they go to Europe as we have some new potential customers there. Okay, so that's my first answer. So let's go with the second answer, which is, how are trips currently booked? They book it on their own. We don't have a central travel agent or a self-booking site. They book it on their own, and it's their responsibility to make sure they look for the least expensive option. Okay, perfect. So let's do number 3, which is asking me, airfare exceptions. Okay, so coach only in general, unless there's an exception to the rule, like it's an emergency flight and there's only a couple of options. They should only be checking in one luggage, and generally as direct as possible. No business class and no first class. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Ride share when possible, except for a major. I'll go back and fix myself on this one. So let's do ride share in major metropolitan areas where parking, tolls, and the car itself is really expensive, comma, for the most part, they could rent a car if it's a more rural area. Okay, perfect. So let's go to 5. And then we got lodging guidelines. Marriott or Hilton preferred, but whatever average rate hotel in the area is fine. Okay, so let's do number 6. And let's do $75 per day for meals and another $50 for other incidentals other than travel. Okay, perfect. So let's go to 7. It needs to be approved by the direct manager if it's over 1,000, or self-approval if it's under 1,000 with a cap of 1,000 per month. Okay, perfect. Let's do 8. Personal card is fine, but corporate card when available. Okay, good. 9, documentation and timing. Must present documents within 15 days of the trip completion to be reimbursed or accepted. Okay, and there's another one, government contracts. Let's just say here, if it's a government contract, add an addendum that they have to adhere to those specific rules. Okay, that's good enough. So again, what we did is the prompt was, I'm a brand new CFO, help me create a travel policy, but ask me 10 questions first to understand more about my corporation, about my business. And then based on that, it will now create or design a template that's, again, highly specialized and highly personalized. I could have told it to ask me 20 questions. I could have told it to ask me 5 questions only. So here's my, here is my draft. Now I'm gonna wait for it to finish, and then I'm actually gonna switch to something called Canvas, which is actually much better, and it'll work. It'll work actually. It's a better way to draft documents. We'll let it finish this, but this will be the last example. So we're gonna say let's switch to Canvas. Okay, this is called the write or code feature, which is Canvas. So what it does is, instead of just pasting the answers in the chat, it'll paste it in something that kind of looks like a Word document. And then again, it goes into this side-by-side mode, which is great. So now I can have it change things on the side chat, but then in here, I can make edits on the fly, which is actually really good to have. So before I copy and paste this into Word or Google Docs or whatever, we can do that. So here's my travel policy, the way it's set up. I'll go ahead and share this to the public here, and I'll put it in the live chat. So if you kind of want to see it, you'll be able to see that. I'm gonna go ahead and put this link in the live slides as well, which is why we recommend the live slides. So if you want to see the demo that I did on the spend management and the live slides, you can do that. The last quick thing I will have you take a look at. Okay, so now we have our policy, and again, we can edit things on the fly. We can say add 2 more points here, or which, no, hold on a second, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's just go here for a second. Add 2 more points here. Add 2 more points here. So you can do on the fly editing, where you actually just select a particular area of the text, and then you tell it just edit this or just add things in here. So that's the nice thing about Canvas mode, that where you can, instead of having it redo the whole thing, it modifies only specific areas within the chat, which is actually one of my favorite reasons to use the chat mode. While that finishes, I'm going to show you one last thing here. I'm going to show you, this feature is amazing. It's called custom GPTs. So we're going to go here, it says GPTs, and then we're going to go to create, and then we can say CFO policy creator. Okay, and then on the instructions, we're going to say, I uploaded to the knowledge several examples of procurement, vendor management, and travel policy from different companies to use as context and inspiration to help the user build something custom for their own business. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll upload the files here. So just to give you a little bit of context, I have a couple of other files here. So we have a travel policy from this company called VT Industries. And then we have the supplier code of conduct and sustainable procurement policy. And then we have vendor management policy from this company called Harlow. All these things I found on the web, so you can download these type of things. So I will upload these into the context. So basically what you do is you create a custom GPT that has a very specific purpose. You upload the context. You tell the user, this is new, you tell the user which model you recommend them using. Obviously, always recommend the best model, which is the O3. And then you create the custom GPT. You share it inside your organization. Okay, or you can share it with anyone that has the link. So I'll do that for you. So I'll put that in the live slides, and I'll put that in the chat. So anybody could, at this point, even play with this custom GPT. And to wrap it up, I'll just kind of show you a quick result of that, so I can hand it over to Bill to wrap things up. But you can come in here and you can say, I need a brief new vendor management system document that instructs every new employee on what's the process of onboarding new vendors. Okay, so that'll be good enough. And again, we used other documents as inspiration, and that's what it does. It reads the document. So now this is a single purpose custom GPT where it stays within the guidelines based on what it read. So it says, look, I'm going to refer to Generac Supplier Code of Conduct and Vendor Management Policy for inspiration. So you send it a bunch of documents, it reads the documents, it figures out which document is probably the most useful based on the context, and then it starts building something for you. So here we go. So there's the process, right? Identify a need, submit a vendor request form, which could also ask it to create for you, some preliminary screening, some risk and clarity assessment, due diligence package, approval workflows. Again, just templates, right? You go back there and you fill this up and change it, based on the needs of your organization. But that's kind of the idea, more or less. It's like you're using ChatGPT to leverage your day-to-day task. It's not going to take over any task. It's not going to somehow remove all the work that we're doing today, but I think it's going to help each individual person in your organization just get better. So hopefully that was useful, these examples in this spend management CFO controllership space. Go check out Bill.com. Dallin, Bill team, thank you very much for sponsoring this webinar. I'll leave it to the CP Academy team so they can wrap it up, and we're going to close the last polling question. Thank you very much, guys. See you on the next one.